For latest updates and short audio clips, follow us on Instagram, Reading the Author.
Hey guys, welcome back to the podcast Reading the Author, a unique show where we read authors' mind and not their book. Meanwhile, I truly believe and pray that you and your families are completely safe and healthy as well. Guys, today we have Ishita Ganguly ma'am with us, and she is the author of Stories from the City called Kolkata. Thank you so much ma'am for coming on our show. We are highly grateful कि आप हमारे show पर आए.
Thank you so much, Gaurav, for having me in your show. And I hope it will be a wonderful discussion.
Definitely. So, ma'am, before we get into the podcast and know much more about our book, about your vision and everything, I would request you to please introduce yourself so that our listeners can know much more about you, and do share how you started this writing journey.
So about me, I'm a passionate storyteller. I'm writing since childhood, and I'm trying to write stories and to scribble poetry from when I could hold the pencil. To be honest, I'm trying from then, and so writing has always been my passion. And after that, I have time to time I've freelanced, and I've as an amateur writer, I've tried my hands in different magazines or publications, kind of that. But later on, this passion became a profession for me. So now I am a published author. I'm the author of the book Stories from the City called Kolkata. I'm also a co-author of 5 international anthologies, and my poems have been published in different publications. And also my articles. I'm also an article writer, so my articles have been also published in different magazines and publications. So I'm a professional writer, as I can put it now.
So we have read like ma'am, you were a corporate professional, then you turned into an educator, and now a full-time writing.
Right.
So how does this makeover happen? Pursuing writing as a full-thing job is very rare in India. Basically, to be very honest, I have recorded around 140 plus episodes till now, but I have met very few authors who recommend or who are genuinely a full-time author. So please share how does this happen?
So basically, as I said, writing has always been my passion, and it's been something even as a when I could I could have the feelings as a child, as a toddler. So from then I had this knack of stealing pencils or pens from my parents or sister, and kind of trying to scribble here and there. And so it's been my second nature, or it's been what my whole essence of who I am, that I'm a writer. But yes, I never chose it as a profession. I always knew I can write. My teachers also encouraged me, and they always say that you have a good flair at writing, and you should keep writing. So I received all those compliments, I got all those encouragements, but I never ever kind of imagined that I could be a full-time writer. Although I had this childhood fantasy, you can say, that kind of thing that yes, my book will someday come, it'll be released and people will read my book, that kind of dream I had. But I even I scribbled poetries, I wrote stories in my journals, but I never seriously thought that in a conscious way that it could be that it could be done, it'll happen, and it can be done. And there are steps to do, because one thing is wanting to write, or you are writing in your leisure time, that is something. But when you have to do the actual thing, so there are actual steps and processes which you have to go through. So I never like thought in that way. And then naturally I chose my career first in the corporate sector. So it was also like in the academic sector only, but it was like the corporate. So there I used to like, in my job profile also, other than my like HR duties and admin duties, I also had to create some content, because it was like education sector, so edutech. So I had this time to time, I had this opportunity, or you can say I had the responsibility to create content, academic content. But then also I felt that in the entire, like all the job responsibilities I have, this was like the writing part or creation of like creating content, that was the best part. Like I enjoyed so much, but then still I couldn't like decide that this could be my path. And then I became a school teacher. I was into school teaching. I enjoyed being a school teacher, and I have enjoyed like doing my work. But I never got the 100% satisfaction, you can say. And then what happened is, like, to be honest, I never chose writing. I always say that writing chose me, because in 2018, what happened, that I was diagnosed with pancreatitis. It was a severe case of pancreatitis, and I was hospitalized, and I was in the ICU, and like it was a very like serious situation. It was kind of like where you are in between that life and death that kind of situation. It was so serious, and the pain was so severe, and the like complicated treatment procedures that were like going on. So in that in that process, like I started like while in the hospital bed, I tried to tell myself stories to keep my mind off the pain or whatever. So I was like telling myself stories, and at that time it was something like my intuition was maybe, even if it in a subtle way, it was like giving me a hint that this is your thing. Like you are a storyteller, so this is something you are. You don't have to become. This is who you are. And then after like coming back to home, and I was obviously very like weak, and I was bedridden, and I was like most of the time I was like staring at the ceiling, and I was so like in pain, like physically, mentally, I was like so emotionally, you can say, drained. And at that point, one midnight, I decided to start my blog. So I just earlier also I had this intention of setting a blog, but I always thought that maybe I don't know how to go with it. There are like complicated steps or whatever. I didn't actually do anything about it. But this one night that I was like sleepless, and I was asking myself a lot of questions, that who am I really? What should I do? And like sometimes you hit that kind of rock bottom, and you kind of ask yourself those questions.
What's the purpose? What I'm doing here?
Yes. What's my purpose? Why am I not satisfied? And I was like like you can say in a 0.0 condition. Like I had lost my health, I had lost my job, I had lost my any kind of like energy to do anything. And I was so physically, mentally, emotionally weak. I've seen so many close people in my life, like they were really close, and they at that point have just left me. And I was so like in a like such a despair and in such darkness. And it is in darkness that you get to see the light. And that is what happened with me. And that is when I decided that enough is enough. Now I should start a blog, because this is who I am. Because I remember that when I was in extreme pain, I was in the ICU, and I was like, I was not given any food or water like that. I stayed 20-21 days in that condition, because my body was not in that state. It was not able to take food or water, because my enzyme levels were increasing. All of that stuff were happening. So in that moment, in extreme pain, what I was doing, I was telling stories to myself. So this time that I was like doing the self-reflection alone in my bed at home, so I remembered that this is me, this is who I am. I don't have to become a storyteller. I am a storyteller, because from childhood I've been writing stories, I've been scribbling poems. So this is something which is already in me. This is who I am. So this is something I should start. Like in a slow way, whatever, but I should start. Even like at that point, I didn't have, to be very honest, I didn't have the like physical, you can say, strength to like sit for hours and like, type on my computer, but still, or hold a pen for long. So I didn't have that kind of physical stamina even, but I thought that I should start. And that is how I started with my blog first. And then I don't know how the blog became like a bit popular, or not that popular, but somehow some like, relevant people, they kind of like appreciated, and I was getting a lot of like, encouragement. And then some sort of freelance writing assignments came on my way, and I started taking that. And at that point, I also decided that, and I was like, I was like pitching to different magazines for, I was sending my poem, most of which were getting rejection slips, but I was like sending. And at that point, what happened, one of my poems that I didn't expect also, it got selected by, there was this new anthology that was coming at that point. It was done by Elizabeth Gilbert, the novelist Elizabeth Gilbert, and her friend Azure Antoinette. So they were compiling an anthology, and they were receiving submissions. And at that point, I just suddenly happened to know about it. I just casually submitted a poem. I just didn't even have the expectation that they will accept it for their anthology or whatever. But that got accepted in the book Pivot and Pause, and my poem's name was The Phoenix. So it was something about what I was going through, so related to that situation only, and that poem got selected. So that was a huge thing to me at that point of time.
Definitely.
And then also I started, at that time I was like, confident, because I had a story idea in my head for a long time. And then in 2019 I started to write it, that like, a collection of short stories, and that I finished by the start of 2020. And then in 2020 end, the book got released. So that is Stories from the City Called Kolkata. And in this like, entire span that I was in home, so I was also writing for websites, for publications, for submitting to magazines, and all of that. Means suddenly, like, 2018, I was there in a very bad situation. And then it was like sometimes, the darkest of your like time, it kind of pushes you towards the, what you are, towards self-realization. And that happened with me. And this is how I realized that I should take this thing. Means I didn't even have, Gaurav, I didn't even have the expectation that I'll earn money out of this, or I'll be popular, or I didn't have any such kind of like even imagination or planning or whatever. Just things started to happen as soon as I realized that I am a storyteller, and I should write not just stories, means be it articles, poems, or any other format, whatever work was coming my way, like writing related. So I was taking that, I was doing that, and like from 2019 to till now, things just happened. It just like, took a flow, and it just took me into the flow. And I became a professional writer. So now I can say that yes, I am a full-time writer, and writing is my profession now. So so that's something.
And writing has chosen you.
Yeah, writing has chosen me. This is what I think, because at one point when I was even thinking that I have not, like, when I was in doing job and all, I thought like I don't have the time. Maybe at that point of like, what happens now when you join a job, you're so busy with it. And after that, like, I was so out of touch with writing, because for those few years maybe I've written less or whatever, and then I thought that this thing maybe have left me, writing has left me, but it never left. That is what I realized.
So, ma'am, as we know that the book is released and it's performing really well on Amazon. I just saw. But there must be some sort of people who would like to explore the book, buy the book, read the book after listening to this podcast. So, for those new readers, what they can expect from this book? Like, can you share some insights?
So basically, Stories from the City called Kolkata. It is a book which is written in the backdrop of Kolkata. And now Kolkata is a city where I was born and brought up. So Kolkata is actually, I can say the city is in my, it's in my existence. It's like I exist in the city and the city also exists in me. So kind of that. So that is why maybe all the characters and stories are based on Kolkata, but it's not like it is typical of here. You can say the stories are very typical of the Indian middle class people. So actually the book represents the Indian middle class people, because I also come from a middle class family, and the things that are the situations that have been here, depicted here, the people, their struggles, their frustrations, their ambitions, and their high points, low points, the loneliness of city people, and going through all of the struggle, but having this never say die attitude of the Indian middle class people. So that is have been represented here, or I try to represent that through my characters, through my stories. And each of this here, it's a collection of 10 short stories. So it's something you can start from anywhere. In a novel, you have to start from the beginning. So here maybe you can, but my readers, they say they randomly have maybe picked the fifth story or the last one or whatever. So in that way, so this book is actually dedicated to the spirit of the Indian middle class city people and their zeal to survive and continue their life journey. So it's about them.
Okay. So the main reason to pick up your first book as a short story was just to make people read it from anywhere, or was there some other reason as well? What was your inspiration behind writing this book, or choosing short stories to write? What was the whole concept?
Basically, I didn't think so much that but I think to me short stories that came naturally, because I wrote short stories even as when I was a child. Even I can write extremely the flash fiction that is said, very short stories or micro tales. I have this habit from childhood to write short forms of stories. So that is something which comes naturally to me. So maybe because of that, and also I got the book idea. Kind of it came in a suddenly it just hit on me when I was traveling, and so it was there. The book idea was there. So I didn't plan much, you can say. It just came naturally to me, and that is what I wrote in the form of this book.
So as of now, ma'am, now talking from the perspective of the reader who have already read your book, so what they can expect as of now? You're writing something, is this anything in the pipeline? You want to stick to these genres only, or you want to experiment a little bit on some other genres? What's upcoming?
Yeah, actually I'm experimenting. In this within this time also, I have been my works have been published, my poems, articles, short stories that have been already published. And currently I'm working on for a comics platform. So I'm writing I'm writing as a script writer, but the story is also mine. So one comic is coming on a popular comics platform. So that is something is going on, and I'm also writing a book. So it is a non-fiction. It's not fiction. It's based actually on a real life situation or a person, you can say. It's based on a real life person, and so all of these are like my current like works that I'm doing. Also, in the meantime, I've written, because I write a lot of poems all the time, and I lose those poems and things like that happen. But now I've decided to like compile those poems in a book format. And yeah, and in July actually I compiled a book that is like expressions from the heart. So that is a collection of poems by different authors. So this is a book I edited and compiled. It also has a poem written by me, but it has like poems by 40 women writers from 15 countries.
Wow.
So that has already released in July. And so the other works that I'm doing, hopefully they'll be coming this year or the next.
So basically, like my next question to this podcast is like, what we see that after the first lockdown, the numbers of author gets increased very rapidly. Like, the publishing has become much more easier as it used to be. We have literary agents, social media, self-publishing houses, KDP is there, everything is there. So as a new author, what you feel like, making your book stand out in this whole chaos is completely very hard in this phase, or, you're someone who says, okay, it's a creativity field, and, every book will find its own reader, every writer will have their own particular audience. What's your take on this?
Like the question you've asked is actually a relevant question. It's such a strong question, and it's true. It's so true that writing it has become so common, I can say. Like nowadays, even like teenagers, like 12-year-old, 13-year-old, they are also writing books. So anyone can now write a book, and there's no harm in it. But obviously the competition, you can say, or the challenge is tough. And especially these days, the biggest challenge is not just like, you writing the book. See, writing a book in itself is a very difficult task. But doing that, next is you getting published. So however you means maybe these days there are other options. Like if you are not represented by your traditional publisher, you can go to some other publisher, vanity publisher, you can self-publish yourself. All of that is there, but still somewhere you have to stand out, because if you are like, if your work is there but no one comes to know that you exist, that your book exists, so none of your effort at the end of the day will matter. So this is the biggest challenge, to stand out in a crowd. And when these days there are authors who can spend like a lot on marketing their books, on book launches. Not everyone can do that, but many can afford that. And so here again, there's a big question of affordability and representing yourself to the audience. Because I believe, yes, if you're a good writer, I'm not saying that again, good writer, there are many definitions of good writer. Means I want to say, like, if you write something meaningful and from your heart, I believe you will have your readers. That is true. But how will your readers know about you? So that is a big question. So for that, you have to take some form of publicity, like maybe use social media or whatever. So somewhere you have to reach to your audience. Otherwise, yes, there's a big chance of your work getting lost in the crowd. That happens. Like there are bad books which are doing great, and there are good books which nobody knows. It's not that readers will not read. People nowadays say that there are, number of readers are getting decreased. People do not read these days. That's not true. Still, there are many people who love books, but you have to reach out to them. And like you have created this wonderful platform for the authors to reach out and to connect with the readers. So this is a wonderful platform, I'll say. So like anyhow you have to reach out to your readers, be it through your social media profiles or whatever way. You have to do something, otherwise people will not know about you. So the biggest struggle of an author is this, like, you know, making themselves known. I think that's the biggest challenge.
So you know what I personally feel in this ki we are living in the era jahan pe na, agar जैसे I talk to personally many authors, so they say कि okay, my book is good, people will randomly find it. Then I just, you know, make them understand कि ये ऐसा तब होता जब सामने वाला भी ऐसा सोचता. The other person
Right.
is paying, you know, a lot of money to just market themselves, to just creating themselves as a brand. So there are more chances कि जो रीडर है वो उस चीज के लिए जाए जो उसको दिख रही है, rather than वो ढूंढने में टाइम अपना वेस्ट करे. So that's what I feel कि what differentiate a good author who is, you know, selling and author who is not selling is just the game of marketing. It's what you can make strong. And that's how वो कहते हैं ना, एक हिंदी में हमारे साइड एक कहावत है कि जो दिखता है वही बिकता है. So that is the one thing what I personally
True. This is so true, but this was not true earlier, because earlier what happened, Gaurav, earlier only people, like some people who were like, who had this thing in them, like they were so passionate from childhood, only they used to become authors. Now you will see, even not like some people, they are maybe marketing people, they are life coaches, they also are coming with a book, right? And they are also becoming best-selling authors. Some people are using ghostwriters and they are also becoming known as authors. So there's a like industry developed out of this.
In fact, you know, ma'am, you won't believe, I have I have worked with an author, and that author has written a book which is the shortest book I guess I have ever seen. It is just of around 25 lines, and the book is available on Amazon, and the author is a best-selling author as well. So no words to say regarding this.
New concepts are coming. Then there are these pocket books, but I never heard of 25 lines book. That I didn't know. But pocket books are there, so you can even write short form, you can write whatever, and then you can market yourself, and then you become credible as an author. This has become a like new fashion, you can say, or I don't know, maybe this is going to stay in this way, because earlier this didn't happen. Earlier, if you had the merit, maybe you had to struggle, but at some point, people, means the publisher would find you out and they would represent your work, and then you would get the whatever appreciation or attention that you deserve. So that happened, and nowadays it's a totally different thing. Nowadays, anyone, like a teenager, is also writing a book, but I have no problem with that. But I just want to say that whatever you say, to write a book, you need some experience. So even if you're a teenager and you have a like fascination for writing, I think you need some years to learn. So now more people are into, like, you know, jumping into the thing that I have to write a book. And I find it too shocking when people say that, yes, I've written a book, you know, and I'm like going to publish, and when I ask that how many times you've edited, and they say edit that, so I'll hire an editor for that. I mean, I don't get it. Like, you have to edit your book yourself. You cannot be an author or a writer saying that, no, I've just done my first draft and this is it. I'll hire an editor who will do the job for me. So I don't know what people are doing that. So this is how it's becoming.
So, ma'am, like, do you have any particular writing schedule? Like, you devote some particular hours to your writing, or it's just like random कि कभी कोई thought आया तो phone में डायरी में लिख लिया, फिर बाद में बैठ के लिखा? How does it goes with you?
Actually, both ways, I'll say. See, I am kind of a lazy person, I'll say, to be honest. Sometimes ideas just hit me, but I'm too lazy to jot it down. But then I have repented over it often. And now what I do is I try to, like, at least in my phone, I try to somehow take at least the basic points. If it's a poem, I try to write the entire thing. And if it's a story idea, at least the points, I just want to, like, you know, uh, note it down, and that is something when an idea, it just happens to me. But other than that, yes, I like to follow a writing schedule. Usually I prefer the morning hours, but currently I'm not able to stick to that routine because of personal reasons. So it happens, like often you cannot stick to your routine, but it's best if you have one writing routine, especially if you are doing it professionally. Like it could be that if I'm missing my morning schedule, then I have to sit at the desk in the afternoon or evening. So anytime you can sit and write, that's true. But for me, the best time is in the early hours. Like if I sit around at around 5 a.m., that works best for me.
So, ma'am, like till now we have talked about your book, about your vision, about your upcoming books and everything. Now coming to your personal life, like, I know there must be a lot of moment which you tag as the happiest moment of your life. But if you can share any one of them with us, then that would be really great.
So, the happiest moment I'll say was the time my book got published. Stories from the City called Kolkata got published, and I could give my book to my father. He could hold the book, and he was so happy. I could just see it in his eyes. So I think that was the happiest moment. And my father said that I always knew you are a writer. So that was the biggest compliment I received, I guess. And that was the happiest moment because I saw my father was so happy holding my book in his hand.
Okay. So, ma'am, my next question to you is like, when you came to know that, okay, tomorrow my book is about to release, right? So on that eve, what goes in your mind? Like, do you feel stressed or, relaxed or, excited? What goes in your mind at that time?
Actually, see, I feel kind of happy, excited. I don't feel much about what reaction I'll get. Also that, till now, only one of my, as a book, Stories from the City called Kolkata, it's my entire book. And in other books, I was a co-author. Or this Expressions from the Heart, it's again my project, but it's a compilation of different writers' work. So whatever it is, I feel that kind of a sudden happiness, excitement, and all of that mixed together, kind of that. I'm not pressurized. I think the biggest pressure is when the book is in the process, when you are maybe hesitating to sit and write, and you know that you have a deadline, and you are not, some days you are not pouring those many words on paper or hitting on the keyboard. So they're kind of that. So I think the pressure is while you are writing the book. So that is the biggest challenge. But once it's done and the proofreading done, everything done, and the date is scheduled, so I think that's a very good moment.
So, ma'am, my last question to this podcast is there must be a lot of people who will start writing after this podcast, or there must be people who will be holding their first draft in their hand and the book isn't published yet. So what would be your single piece of advice for them?
So for them means people who intend to write, you're saying, people, writers.
Those are the upcoming authors.
Yeah, just write. I think the biggest challenge a writer faces is as much as we want the story to come out or the book to come out, often we are we are paralyzed by fear. We are paralyzed thinking that what will happen, what reaction will I get, I'm a bad writer, maybe I'm not a writer only, maybe this is all my imagination of me thinking that I'm an author or I could be an author. So all the self-doubts and means doubting yourself and all of that, just throw it away and for a moment just remove the, or like you just forget everything, that how bad you are or how bad your work could be. Just silence your self-critic, that critic that is in you. Just make it somehow, silence it somehow, and just do the work and have a discipline. Like, I believe following a scheduled work for like any writer, like if you know that I have to write at this hour, then you will have this thing that I have to sit at 5 a.m. or 5 p.m. or 10 a.m. or whatever is your time. So schedule a time for yourself that I'll write for maybe 1 hour or 4 hours or whatever. That again depends on you. But do the work. Just write. That's the main thing.
Okay, so that's all for today, guys. I hope you must have enjoyed this episode. And if you do, then do follow our podcast, Reading the Author, available on all the leading podcast platforms. And don't forget to buy and read the book. आप just Amazon पे जाएं, वहाँ पे सर्च करें इशिता गांगुली मैम की बुक्स आ जाएंगी, ज़रूर खरीदिए. Either you can search Stories from the City called Kolkata, या आप सर्च कर सकते हैं Expression from the Heart. मैम की दोनों बुक्स आ जाएंगी, ज़रूर खरीदें, पढ़ें और अपने जानने वालों से, चैनल से ज़रूर शेयर करें. Thank you so much, ma'am, for enlightening us with your thoughts. It was truly my honor to host you today.
Thank you so much. It was such a pleasurable experience to be in your show. Thank you.
Thank you so much.